Hello, this is Schwab again. This time I'd like to continue my explanation about pathline creation, and I'd like to show you a very simple geometry again, the contraction we've used in the pathline previewing, and now we will see some more advanced features which were added in version 6.9. In the previous presentation, we've seen how to make a regular pathline from XYZ file to import and do lots of pathlines at the same time. But here we have one more advanced tool, and that is a multipath, right? If you're in a 3D grid, you can just click on that one, and it creates a folder with the definition file. The definition file is nothing else than a dependent grid, but this dependent grid allows you to do arbitrary element creation, pasting from clipboard, so you can bring the seeds and definition from other meshes, from file to file, through a clipboard, and so on. You can erase, delete, connect. You have lots of options. So let me just show you for a simple editing. For example, I just decide to create a quad element, and I do it from 1, 1. So this is my quad being created. I've fixed 1 point. And then similarly, as I define elements, I can just do this quad. Once I click finish and close, this element is created in that definition file, but its corners are used to create 4 path lines. And we have the path lines here in that folder. So let's hide the front faces of the parent grid to see them. And we start to see 4 path lines coming through, right? So it's very easy to edit that file, and we can just modify it, and we will get automatically other path lines, and we can then of course work with each path line of its own and trace how the polymer flows. Okay, so very easily I can just edit them. Now I'm doing the editing by all the commands here, so I can move that point, let's say, forward, and I can move it to the side or whatever. But of course, people prefer to use often the manual editing. So now you can say, I want to manually edit that file. If you do, you will see a very simple split definition format. That split again is coming later. I will explain that in a separate presentation. But it is simply exporting the nodes and also the elements. So this is one quad. We have only one quad from these 4 nodes. Very simply, I can just by Control Enter add one more point, 5, 5, 5, 5, and let's say 10. And if I just say accept, I will be having one more path line coming through, right? So now we see 5, 2, 4, 5. And the middle one, that one, is having a seed at the position 5, 5, 10. So right in the middle, but a little bit moved in the Z position. Um, and again, I can just edit the definition. You see I have 5 points, and if I just try to edit that manually again, I will see that the point is here, so I can again erase it very easily. However, when you erase it, you'll be erasing, this is point numbers 0, 1, 2. So I should lower down these numbers first. So before saying accept, I just need to really edit that one, otherwise the import can even crash or can be confused, right? I'll do it like this, and then I have again one quad. Uh, so this manual editing is very possible, and it should replace in the future probably the standard XYZ file, because that one does only seeds, like lots of seeds, but it's not having the element which is linking them. Now, why would I need that element linking them together? Because now I can say show deformation, and I can trace them forward. Look, now I'm seeing how the element goes forward. Now, of course, this particle is very fast, so it goes away much earlier and much faster than these ones. So we see a deformation of that originally rectangular particle, and we can see where they end up also. So if I just change the display option of the definition, let's say to basic 3D, just to make it more visible for you. So that originally rectangular element ended up quite distorted. So we can see how it got distorted. Of course, this distortion is having also some Z component, some downstream velocity component. So we have to understand that well. Now, of course, you may say, well, this is very rough. Yeah, but now you can split it, make many elements, and then you will really see how the polymer flows, and you get a feeling how it flows inside. So, for example, I can just go split, and I can very easily split these elements. I need to say show the edges. See, now I'm splitting the quad into many, and then if I just hit right, if I right click, I will get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times 5, 25 nodes to be used as seeds for the path line. Now the path lines have been created, calculated, and of course there is a bench of path lines, so maybe we just don't need to see them at all. I can just hide them. And now I can only visualize how this surface is being deformed, how it is distorted. At the same time, I can just let it hide the uh, the lines, right? And now I'm seeing how that is going to be deformed. Now that is giving me a little more precise shape of how the rectangular element got deformed. So this is showing me lots of effects of elongation shear. We call it geometrical encapsulation. Okay, so this is quite interesting and important study. It can be used for study of mixing. It can be used for study of really the shear and deformation of material particles. When I used a rectangular shape, you don't need to have a rectangular shape. Let me just delete this. And you can, of course, create a line to represent, let's say, two particles. Or you can make simply a brick here. So if I just go and say create elements, I can say I want to use a brick element. And I like to see how, let's say, this particular segment is being deformed, right? So now I will see, oh, I need to say show deformation. If I now start to move, I will see the element being deformed and being elongated. Okay? Let me just hide those path again. Now, for sure, it should be a split. We have too much deformation for relatively simple shape. So that is, of course, having a lot of potential, and we can use it for definition of the multiple path lines. Okay. Now we can also use it in a better way for much complex geometry. So I would like to show you here a relatively complex spiral die flow. This is a very simple geometry where we observe. For those who don't understand how this geometry looks like, this is a periodic geometry. So the uh, real geometry looks like this. We have 6 inlets. This is inlet, and this is inlet, and every spiral travels once around. So it has several overlaps, and from those spirals, the polymer is squeezed because the spiral gets smaller and smaller, and while the gap is opening, so the polymer leaks to that gap, and it should create an annulus with several layers, and every port, every segment gives us a certain layer. So people which analyze this spiral die, they understand that leakage from that spiral to the gap is very important. Uh, Of course, we can study only one periodic segment, and very easily we can just say, give me a particle like this, and I can just put here a seed, and then if I hide the front faces, I'll be looking at the particle traveling through, okay? Now, in 6.9, we have added here several new features. For example, you see that the periodicity is being applied here. We see it now at the vertical. You see the vertical gray line. That's where the particle leaves the periodic segment. And of course, it continues here because the particle really, if I'll show you the periodicity for that particle, it is continuing through. So this is my particle traveling through. This is of course an illusion because we have the particle only on one segment, one periodic segment. So as soon as it leaves there, it has to be connected and flows in again, and we trace the particle downstream that way. Okay. Now, of course, I can make a different number of particles and compare them. Here we have one more extra option, and that is that here in the dialogues in the APP, we allow in the grids tab to say whether the path lines are periodic or not. When we say they are not periodic, and when we of course recalculate the particles, now the particle is not calculated on that periodic segment, but it is coming through completely. Okay. Now that is very useful because I know it looks like a minor difference, but it really has an importance which we see later on. So let me open here another project where I've prepared myself and where I have an extra definition. So I was explaining in the previous section how we can do multiple paths, that we can really make a definition. So I've prepared the definition already, and if you look at it, this is the definition. You see a series of not nodes, but a series of lines. And it has, of course, corners which will be used as seeds. And when we say calculate, so these path lines will be used as seeds. And when we look at the path lines, you will see that we have a really big amount of path lines. And it's a mess because they are really periodic. So let me just cancel the periodicity. And now you see the path lines only on that particular segment. Okay. So every path line is just coming over several overlaps. And because it is periodic, we tend to show it on one segment only. Well, some people don't like it because they'd like to see which path lines from the first, or let's say from one overlap to what circumference the path lines go, right? If they cover 270 degrees or 180 degrees. Now, one way how to do it is really to use here the dialogues, application setups, and in the grid set, don't do the path lines periodic. And now if we just calculate the path lines once more, the path lines don't appear on one segment, periodic segment, but they continue forward through. So that is a big difference. And now we can visualize what is the segment the path line cover. From one port, how far do they go? So we can see that they cover almost 180 degrees here, right? So maybe 3 overlaps. At the same time, we have here several possibilities. For example, we can animate that. We have seen that we can show the deformation. All right. So let me hide those path lines, and I can now show the deformation, and we can see how these particles go through. So for the first time, we see the particles really leaking out and going through until they go to the exit. Right? So this is very interesting for me to see. Well, that's interesting, but I like to see also the particles from the second overlap, and maybe we can visualize them together somehow. Let's try. So we can say for the definition, I want to do the periodicity and maybe do only one periodic segment, right? So if I just go deformation, I should see now 2 inlets going through. Okay. And what if I do more? Maybe 4. Let's try. See now, well, let's try all of them. We have now 6 overlaps, that is 5 extra periodic segments. And we start to see how these particles flow through. Okay. Now these segments and these lines and nodes, they're of course having some color of the variable, in this case of the pressure. Well, we can do something different. We can say we can give them a marker, or we can give them a color of the grid, and what more, we can give them a certain color of the periodicity. Why would I need to do that? So let's try to just cancel the periodicity, and this way we say we want the color of the first overlap to be, let's say, green. Okay, and now it's still not green, because here in the definition of the points we need to say respect the grid color. Okay, now it will respect the grid color, and if the periodicity requirement, it will respect that too. Now we say show periodicity, and for the first overlap, we say, for the first periodic part, we say this one will be red. Okay, so we have green, we have red, and now the next one we can say this will be yellow. So now we have green, red, yellow, and now if I want more, I will be having green, red, yellow, green, red, yellow. I can do something different. I can just cancel this, and I will say don't show periodicity, make this yellow. Let's say the first will be, or let's do it green again, green. The next one will be, let's say, yellow or red. Okay, and now I just say continue. So it will be green, red, green, red, green, red, because for the we've defined only this one and that one, and this one needs to be simply repeated. But if I just go back, I can, let's say, for this one specify I want blue, and now if I go again forward, I have green, red, blue. Of course, you can do, even for the last one, you can do your own color, let's say like this one. Okay, how I have, and I should do also for number 4, let's say color like this. So you can change any color you can have, right? But usually we just cancel this, and we say that this one will be green, the next one will be red, and the next one will be yellow or blue. Why we do it? Because we know that the C's, they hardly go over 180 degrees, so we just don't need to have more. And now if I go with the points down, I will see how these colors mix. Okay, and at the end I can preview that here I have one layer from the top, the middle layer, and third layer. Here I have 4 layers, right? What if I also, for the curves, decide to use the color of the grid? Now my curves are also having that color of the periodic segments, and that allows me to see which layer is where, and this helps me also to understand. Let's say I can say hide all the points, and now I finally see the layers which are being created by the spiral die. For the first time we start to see those layers. We're talking about them for years. We've seen them in the practical experiments, but now we see them also in the simulation. Okay, so, or I can just say hide the curves, show me only the points, and now finally we start to see the points moving through. I have also prepared an example of pathlines being calculated when they're periodic, when this checkbox is checked on. If it's checked, basically the pathlines, they are made on one single periodic segment, and of course you can see them periodic like this. But if you just look at the definition and you repeat that as we did in the past, in the previous example, and you say show deformation, of course, the path lines from one port, as soon as they leave that port, they will from red become green because in this case, the colors don't really go forward. So if you want really the colors to stay red for that red inlet, you have to keep these path lines not periodic. Okay. Well, that helps me also to do a very powerful animation techniques. There are many different animation techniques. The most simple animation technique is probably to look at, let's say, all the path lines and pick one of them and just in the graph move and see the path line going through. You can, of course, record this using this powerful AVI recorder. And before you record, you can set up the appearance of those grids in many different ways. Normally we hide this mess of lines and we just focus on the definition here, and we just animate using the show deformation. Again, you can very simply just click here, and by advancing with the arrow on your keyboard, just advance by a predefined amount. But we have also other ways of animating, and that is the animate button here. So you can just click that. Now, when you click that, make sure that you understand that this dialog is a modal. So you can't go anywhere else. It will just do ugly beep. And you have to close this to, let's say, move and so on. So make sure that you prepare your appearance of entities and appearance of your screen the way you like. When we say animate, you also make sure that you always increase this to at least 1. This should not be 0. And then you use the time for the animation reasonable, right? You can do single shot now and you see the animation. What is animated is in fact those particles. So we don't really animate the lines or anything else. We just animate the particles, but we animate them in many different ways. For example, you can do a single shot and see them coming through. You can slow this down a little bit and then you see them going through. If you want more such single shots, you can just say single shot, and then you see 2 shots coming through. Of course, you can just say that I want 6 of them or 9 of them, and then you just click animate, and that will be a mess of points coming through. They're appearing and getting out. And again, you can record a video out from this. You just hit record video. When you finish, you just hit stop recording, and it will give you the video. We can also prepare something different. We can go to Dialogs app, and we can set up how our markers look like, because what we are really visualizing is markers. Now my visualization points were on the balls because this is checked particles only here, right? And these particles are having size of the scalar ball, so I can make them slightly smaller. And then if I say animate, they should be smaller simply, right? So these are really the markers. Markers are being used for this, but now they're scalar balls because we said particles only. If you instead say I don't want particles only, now it will respect based on the particle variables active that you want to see the markers. So now we will have arrows coming through. And again, it's up to you to change the marker's appearance here. So I can just, let's say for the vector mark, say size by value. And then of course I risk that I won't see some of them. And then I can animate this and I'll see the big arrows where the velocity is large and small arrows. And of course, if you are more advanced, you can say that for the definition, my periodicity, I will use the red or green at the beginning, at the first inlet, and then for the second inlet, I use, let's say, red ones, and for this for the next one, I use blue, right? So I can prepare this. I can say don't show these points anymore, and don't show the lines too. But when I do animate, it will still give me animation, and I see the red, green, blue, depending on which port it is coming from. Uh, I can just say particles only, because that's most of the people will do just particles. And then when you say animate, you can just do single shot and see how they interact, how they create those layers. So we see some leakage there. We see another leakage from the red layer, and then we will see one more from the green layer. Okay. So that is very powerful animation technique, and of course you can record this as a video. And the things to change is the distance volume based delays between the frames, and also the time increment, so you can make this faster when we animating. But even when you make it too fast, simply the computer has difficulty to recalculate all those path lines, so it does not really appear faster. But when you record the video, you can make it faster afterwards. Okay. So, but if I just change the time, now the points will not advance that much. So the time is not really how fast the points move in front of your eyes. The slice to use for animation is just how many steps do we have on that path line. Okay, I think it's clear. But feel free to experiment with the marker settings, with all these settings, and with the animation. I wish you good luck, and let me know how you proceed, and feel free to send me some of your animations. Thank you very much.